Hello, everyone. Tashina Gonzalez here of Vida Activa. And as you guys know, I do tons of health and wellness education, but I also do a lot of coaching and education when it comes to emotional, mental, and different other types of wellness. And one of the things that I do as far as self-development, one of my passions is teaching other individuals about different personality schemes. I'm super passionate. I'm actually doing some coaching with some individuals for my day job in General Motors, and I'm super passionate about making sure people understand themselves and they know their strengths and they own their strengths and they walk in their strengths and they collaborate with individuals that can help them cover their weaknesses. So I was chatting with one of my individuals today, and she's a beautiful, wonderful introvert. And she was talking about how she was learning to be more extroverted. And I was like, sweetie, I don't want you to learn to be more extroverted. I want you to be the most present, the most confident, the best introvert that you can be. So that's what I'm passionate about. I love personality profiles. And this is the one that I learned the first, which is basically the most general term for is the 4 temperaments. And I love the 5 love languages. I love the 4 tendencies, use Myers-Briggs occasionally, and strength finders. So I love all these things so that we can get to know ourselves. Now, as a caveat, we do not use these things to put ourselves in a box, ever. Our goal is to understand our strengths so that we can walk better in those strengths. But at no point in time do we have the right to say, oh, well, I'm a D. That's the way I talk. If I hurt your feelings, that's too bad. Or, oh, I'm a sanguine, so I'm just going to always be late. Or, oh, I'm a green, so I just can't be a people person. That is not the point of this. The point is we're all adults. We all can operate and behave like adults. We all can do what we need to do to be adults. But the basis is just to know what are our strengths. Yes, I can operate in any of these frameworks, but it's going to take me more effort when I'm doing the ones that don't come natural to me. So it makes more sense for me to collaborate with someone who has those strengths that I lack so that we can make a better team. But at no point in time do we want to ever say that we can't do something. One of my biggest pet peeves is when someone accuses someone of not being a certain thing because they've done a certain thing and they're putting them in the box. Like somebody does awesome in karaoke and they're like, are you sure you're yellow, you're phlegmatic, or you're not all red or choleric because you're a people person? I hate it when people do that because none of those things are mutually exclusive to any of these temperaments. So with that caveat, I'm going to go into the training. So we're going to show the presentation. So again, this is the 4 temperaments. It's a personality profile with 4. A company that I'm currently working with for my side hustle, we use the colors. The first framework that I was introduced to is called DISC. I've also learned about Personality Plus, which honestly is my favorite framework for this. So I've been studying this for, believe it or not, over 20 years. We did DISC when I was in high school. And the first time I heard about it, I was 14 years old and my mom comes home and she said, we did this personality profile at work. And I did your personality and you are a D. You're demanded, you're direct, you are a D. And my first thought was like, cool. Why are you saying I like this bad thing? And my second thought was, I wonder where I get it from. Sure don't get it from my daddy. So I am definitely more D than she is. So she was right. But that was my first introduction to this. And so again, I've heard it so many times. Personality Plus, they have so many books. They have Personality Plus for parents, and I gave that to my parents. They have Personality Plus at work. I think they have it for singles. I think they have it for couples. I've read like so many versions of the books, recommended the book, love it to death. So I've been studying this for over 20 years. But what's the origin of it? So the origin is, it came from ancient Greek medical theory that there were 4 fundamental bodily humors: blood, yellow bile, black bile, and phlegm, which could cause illness if they were out of balance. The terms sanguine, choleric, melancholic, and phlegmatic were coined by the Greek physician Aelius Galenus to describe the effect of these humors on human behavior. This idea is perhaps one of the oldest that looks like a theory of personality. The 4 temperaments have never been a part of modern medicine or psychological science, but remain fairly well known due to their use by self-help and spirituality authors. So personality profiles are more like tribal knowledge. They're not necessarily a true science, but they seem to be very helpful for people. And again, I've used so many different ones of these frameworks to help me in my life. So in the company that I represent currently, this is the one that we use the most. It's called the colors. And so this is just the most general overview of these. So we have our yellow. Yellows love to help others. They tend to put their needs last. They enjoy encouraging others. They're comfortable behind the scenes. Then we have our green. So our green is a researcher. They're very methodical, slow to make decisions, uncomfortable in new situations. They like facts and dates. And then we have our blue. Our blue loves to have fun. They're life of the party. They enjoy meeting new people, and they tend to love to travel. Then we have our red. Reds are self-motivated, driven to succeed, tend to be the leader and planner, well-organized and comfortable taking charge. So that's our beginning overview. And since this is the framework that I'm used to talking about, when I go to the other frameworks, I am going to repeat what color that has to be. But again, there's so many frameworks. Like, I've been to very general business meetings, and then they talk about the water animals, and you got the shark and the dolphin, or they talk about the just general animals. There's so many ways you can slice this, but at the end, the 4 always fit the same framework. So this is the one I was originally introduced to, and this is the overview of it. So we start with our D, which is also our choleric or our red. So the general characteristics of the D, which is the dominant and driver, are they are direct, they are decisive, they have high ego strength. And that is something I actually had to look up. So high ego strength means they tend to have a very strong sense of self, of who they are. Your ego is like your inner personality. So they don't seem to be rocked by negative things as much. They tend to be problem solvers, risk takers, self-starters. The value that they will bring to a team. So if you're thinking about a business or a work situation, they're the bottom line organizer. They place high value on time. They challenge the status quo. They tend to be innovative. Their possible weaknesses: they overstep authority. They can have an argumentative attitude. They dislike routine. They tend to attempt too much at once. And their greatest fear is being taken advantage of. So this is my first and dominant personality. So one of the things that I want to point out very clearly, the high ego strength. The other thing is they're a bottom line organizer. And this can be misconstrued sometimes because as a red, as a choleric, as a D, I am the person that you want to be in charge of the entire overall party, event, planning, strategy, project. I do very well at that as a bottom line organizer. So we host an educational event, and I am the one that will create the agenda. I will divvy out the tasks. I will say, you're going to be here, and you're going to do the decorations. You're going to be over here. You're going to do check-in, et cetera, et cetera. I do very well at that. But then the person who is doing decorations comes up to me with all the decorations in their hand, and they're like, "Where do you want this?" And I'm like, I don't know. I gave that task to you. I want you to do that. I don't want to be involved in putting this on this wall and this wall and all the details of it. I just want to be the bottom line organizer, as me being a red and my first dominant strength. So usually you will find that people have at least two of these. Sometimes they have a really strong dominant one, and then they have two secondary ones, and both of those are lower. Or you'll find that we're going to talk about natural blends later. If it's a natural blend, it tends to be kind of 50-50. And then a lot of times your second personality is the one that you have more of the weaknesses of. It's what you default to when you are not operating at your highest self. When you are scared, when you are unsure, you tend to fall into the weaknesses of your second personality, just for information. So then the next one we have is our I, which is going to be our blue or our sanguine. So they are influencing and inspiring. The general characteristics about them are they are enthusiastic, they are trusting, they're optimistic, they are persuasive, they're talkative, they tend to be impulsive and emotional. The value that they bring to the team are they are creative problem solvers, they're great encouragers, they motivate others to achieve, they have a positive sense of humor, they negotiate conflicts, they can be peacemakers. The possible weaknesses that they can have, they're more concerned with popularity than tangible results. They can be inattentive to detail. They overuse gestures and facial expressions, and they tend to listen only when it's convenient. Their greatest fear is rejection. So as you can see, we have the red and the blue next to each other because they do have some similarities. As you can see on the top of this, they are both active styles. So they like to be in action. They like to be in movement. So they do share those two things in common. And we'll talk about in the next scheme a couple of other similarities that they have as well. So then we're going to move down to our S, which is our stable or our steady, and our yellow or our phlegmatic. So their general characteristics are, excuse me, they're a good listener, team player, they can be possessive, they're steady, predictable, understanding, and friendly. The value that they will bring to your team is that they are reliable and dependable, loyal team worker, compliant towards authority, good listener, tend to be patient and empathetic, and good at reconciling conflicts. Their possible weaknesses are they resist change, they take a long time to adjust to change, they hold grudge and are sensitive to criticism, they have difficulty establishing priorities, and their greatest fear is a loss of security. So as we see on this side, our blue and yellow actually have two things in common, that they are people-oriented. This is very important to understand. When you're people-oriented, you tend to think about people and feelings first. This does not mean that people that are of the other ones that are task-oriented can't be people person. Everyone would say that I am a people person, although my personality usually comes out as red, green, blue, or red, blue, green, or DCI or DIC, depending in my mood. So I don't have any of the yellow, the S, the phlegmatic, and I'm not a people-oriented. I don't tend to be a people-oriented person, but I'm a very gregarious person and I'm a very people person. But the way that my brain works tends to be more task-oriented. So we'll talk about that in a little bit when we get to that. But so again, our blue, yellow, or our sanguine, phlegmatic, these are our people-oriented. We also see that the yellow is a passive style. So they're not one that likes to always be in motion, always be active. They tend to be okay with sitting in the background. And that's the same with our compliant, incorrect, our green, our melancholy is also a passive style. And their general characteristics are they're accurate, analytical, conscientious, careful, fact finder, precise, high standards, systematic. The value that they bring to the team is they'll bring perspective. They are the anchor of reality. They're conscientious and even-tempered. They're thorough in all activities. They define situations. They gather, criticize, and test information. The possible weaknesses that they can have they need clear-cut boundaries for actions and relationships. They can be bound by procedures and methods. They can get bogged down in details. They prefer not to verbalize their feelings, and they will give in rather than argue. And their greatest fear is criticism. So again, on our left side, they share in common our D and our C, or our red and our green, or our choleric and our melancholy share in common that they're task-oriented. So when you communicate to someone, especially if these are two of their dominant, it's easier for them to understand things when you explain as a task. So if someone comes to me and they say, when you do such and such, it hurts so-and-so's feelings, my initial brain reaction can sometimes be, but it's the truth, and sometimes feelings need to be heard. Like I'm not people-oriented, and that I think of people and feelings first. So if you come to me and you say, when you do such and such, it hurts so-and-so's feelings, and that makes them shut down and they won't want to perform, that makes more sense in my brain because you've told me the task and the results, which align a little bit more with my priority. Again, that is no excuse. Whatever the perception of my communication, I should adjust my communication because perception and communication is reality for that person. And of course, I should still be an adult no matter what and apologize if I've hurt someone's feelings. But just as an example of how my brain thinks more task-oriented versus people-oriented at times. So then we go into this chart, which comes from Personality Plus, which again is my favorite framework. And it gives us a lot of similarities between the different temperaments that we have here. And it gives us some very important information. So on the top, in the corner here on the left, we have our blue, or our popular sanguine, or our I. So we can see in this corner that they are leaders. They tend to be leaders. They are artistic and emotional. They tend to be witty and ongoing. And next to them, we have our powerful cleric, or our red, or our D. And you can see that they, in contrast to the popular sanguine, are unemotional and strong-willed, and they're decisive and organized. We can see that both of these tend to lead. They tend to go out front. Both of these are outgoing, optimistic, and outspoken, which means that they are a natural blend. So it is very common to see someone that is a popular sanguine and a powerful choleric, or are blue-red, or conversely, red-blue, doesn't really matter. It's very common to find that combination, and it's very common to find them about 50-50 because it's a very natural blend with everything that they possess. So these tend to be, very commonly can be people that you find that are like CEOs because they have to have that good personality where they can influence people with that sanguine, that blue, and they also have to have that leadership, that directness, that decisiveness, that driver in them. So this is the personality that you tend to find will be like what you consider what people will call a natural born leader, the people that are kind of like the CEO type. So then if we look to our right side and we compare our powerful choleric red to our perfect melancholy green, so our D and C, we see that this is a very common combination that is called a complementary blend. So the perfect melancholy, our green, in contrast, is introverted, pessimistic, soft-spoken, but they have that red, that choleric, that sometimes allows them to be outgoing, optimistic, and outspoken. The perfect melancholy is very artistic and emotional, and they tend to analyze, and they can be very goal-oriented. So this personality tends to fit into a very business-minded person. They're task-oriented. They have these complementary tasks where they can do a lot of analyzing and then actually put that into action. So any personality in any combination can do any job, right? We're adults. We can operate, we can balance, we can adapt. But these are just some guidelines of what you'll tend to see as something typical. So then we go to our other natural blend. So we have our perfect melancholy, which we've stated they are task-oriented, they are goal-oriented, they're artistic, and they're emotional. And so when we say that they're emotional, they're not necessarily demonstratively emotional. Our blues, our sanguines are demonstratively emotional. Our melancholies have, when you think about the sanguine emotions, you kind of see them and they're like this. Our melancholies are like this. And so, because they're not demonstrative, they're not outward, they're introverted, they tend to hold those inside. So they are emotional, but it's in a different way. Again, they analyze. They're introverted, they're pessimistic, they're soft-spoken. Now, this is a natural blend with our peaceful phlegmatic, so our yellow-green or green-yellow, either way. It tends to be very 50-50 when you see that, because they're both introverted, they're both pessimistic, they're both soft-spoken, they're both have no problems with being like in the background. But you're gonna have, with emotions, you're gonna see a little bit more balance because you have the artistic emotional on the green, perfect melancholy, but you have the unemotional and the strong-willed in your peaceful phlegmatic, your yellow. And then you have some goal orientation with the green, perfect melancholy, and not necessarily goal oriented. So it kind of balances out when they're very healthy. And then we move over to our other complementary blend. So this is our popular sanguine and peaceful phlegmatic, or our blue, yellow, or yellow, blue. So with this complementary blend, this is a complementary blend that is relationship oriented. So we talked about, again, people oriented, relationship oriented, thinking of people and feelings and relationships first. And so this one is going to be, again, our blue. They can be out front sometimes. They can lead. They are artistic and emotional in a demonstrative way, outgoing way. They're witty and easygoing. And they can, because they can be out in front and lead, that balances out how the yellow or the peaceful phlegmatic is not necessarily goal-oriented, is also tempers down some of that emotional because they're unemotional and strong-willed. And they can do some analyzing when it comes to relationships. So you got the balance there of the outgoing and the optimistic and outspoken versus sometimes being able to be more realistic with the pessimism, the soft-spoken, and the introverted. So every time that I go through this chart, the two questions always pop up. The one question is, so what happens if you are the ones that didn't come up as a natural blend or a complementary blend? And what happens if you are balanced? So I'm actually going to read from Personality Plus because when the discussion starts, it sounds a little bit negative and hurtful. And please believe me, that is not what I want it to be. So I like to read what it says from the books when it comes to opposites and balance. So under the term of opposites, so this would be what if a person claims that they are a popular sanguine and a perfect melancholy, or they're a blue-green or green-blue, or they claim that they are a powerful choleric and a peaceful phlegmatic, or a red-yellow and yellow-red. So according to the expert that wrote one of these books, we're talking about Personality Plus right now, there are obvious internal conflicts that the popular sanguine, perfect melancholy, and the powerful choleric, peaceful phlegmatic can put into one person. The introvert and the extrovert natures with the optimistic, pessimistic outlooks. The popular sanguine perfect melancholy is the most emotional of the two, as one body tries to accommodate the little ups and downs of the popular sanguine with the deeper, more prolonged traumas of perfect melancholy. This split personality can lead to emotional problems. The popular sanguine nature says, let's go have more fun. And on the way, the perfect melancholy nature checks the progress. In the case of the other one, the powerful choleric and peaceful phlegmatic, the conflict is to work or not to work. As we have done some intensive case history studies of people who function in these extremes, we have found that usually one of these is a learned response to the hurts of the past. We call these masks of survival. Either the perfect melancholy child, in order to seek parental attention, put on the popular sanguine mask of popularity, or the popular sanguine child, because of abuse or rejection, became depressed and put on the perfect melancholy mask of pain. Many children who are brought up in dysfunctional homes put on the perfect melancholy mask of perfection. If only I could be perfect, daddy wouldn't hurt me, mommy wouldn't yell at me. Whether it is from alcohol, drugs, rejection, sexual or emotional abuse, or extreme religious legalism, these dysfunctional homes breed masking of personality for their children. They don't know how to fight the system, so they tend to become whatever will help them survive. As adults, they appear to be split personalities and don't understand the extreme mood swings they suffered to work or not to work, whether or not they are motivated to work. While the powerful choleric, peaceful phlegmatic opposite natures do not have the same emotional strains, they do have the major conflict of to work or not to work. Peaceful phlegmatic wants to take it easy, and powerful choleric feels guilty when not producing. This question usually resolves itself by dividing life into two segments, working hard at the job and tuning out at home. Many times, a powerful choleric will give his all at work and then either be too exhausted to lift a finger at home or not feel the home front is important enough to deserve his efforts. A peaceful phlegmatic may labor diligently on the job, where he may seem even seem powerful choleric because he is so motivated, then relax completely at the end of the day. If you seem to be in this blend, ask yourself whether you are a powerful choleric, a red, playing low-key at home, or a peaceful phlegmatic, yellow, really motivated at work. If these questions don't seem to bring satisfactory answers, perhaps you are wearing a mask of survival and don't realize that some of your childhood pain is still affecting your adult life. The powerful choleric child who is brought up in a home where his parents argue and fight sees quickly that the best thing for him to do is to cover up his desire for control and keep quiet. The powerful choleric child who is allowed no part of the family decision, making it as it regards his clothes, his room, his pet, his school subjects, his career, and or his choice of mate, learns that he either has to fight for some control or be considered the bad child, or he has to give up and accept authority until he can get out of the house. The powerful choleric child who is abused says to himself, I'll keep quiet about it now, but when I get out of here, no one will ever control me again. Any one of these situations or a combination causes a powerful choleric child to put on the peaceful phlegmatic mask. As an adult, he swings in and out of control and submission and doesn't understand why. The peaceful phlegmatic child does not seek control and is usually the best behaved. Why would this child put on a mask of power and take charge? Only if he looks around his family situation, sees it spinning out of control, and says to himself, somebody's got to do something to pull this place together. In a one-parent home, the responsibility of the missing person is often put upon one of the children. If this child is a peaceful phlegmatic and he suddenly finds himself the man of the house, he puts on the powerful choleric mask, strains his low-key nature, and takes control. As an adult, he takes charge when he has to and drops into the rest whenever he can. He feels perpetually exhausted and doesn't know why he feels torn up inside. If you come out relatively even in either of these opposites, think about your feelings as a child and see if these explanations make sense to you. For further study, read the personality tree, especially the chapter on masking and freeing your mind from memories that bind. So, one of the things that I always encourage people to do when they take this test is to try to take it when you were in the ages of 5 to 11 and at a time that you were winning. So, the time you won the spelling bee, the time that you won that art project, think about a time when you were winning, and when you take these tests, make sure that you take them at that age, because that will help get to your core personality and make sure that you are not using one of the masks that you've developed and you've used for a long time and use as an adult. Because having studied this for over 20 years, I have never, ever, ever, ever in my life met a true yellow red or red yellow. I've met a lot of people who thought they were, but the reality was they were actually had weaknesses of the greens. They have none. They were not able to develop the strengths of the green. And this happens a lot in women, because yellow is the model personality of a woman. Yellow is what, we got to be the good friend, we got to be the loyal wife, we got to be and so they're red, and they have some of these emotions that actually are green, but they're not taught to develop the strengths of the green. And so they have the negative traits that have that natural similarity with the yellows. And so I find very often people who think that they are red yellow are actually red greens that have the weaknesses of greens but never developed any of the strengths of the greens, or they are red blues that the value of like a loud, boisterous cheerleader type blue was knocked out of them. I have met very, very few green blues or blue greens, and the couple that I have met, I would say, fit this description very well. They are obviously came from some type of abuse, and they foster and administer that in their lives. And not saying this in a haughty way whatsoever, because I'm a person that came from abuse, and I'm a person that has been on medication, and I'm a person who has needed talk therapy. So I'm not saying this in a haughty way whatsoever, but I've seen the split personality, and I've seen them really spew this dysfunction onto other people. And I would say that I've only met 2 true green blues in my life. And so again, the person who probably is saying I'm green blue is actually probably red blue, but for whatever reason, their redness was beat down. And so they put on some of this green, this perfection and clean freak, and they think that they're green because of that, but they're actually red, and they haven't recognized the weaknesses of the red. That has been my experience. That aligns with what I just read directly from this book. And then one last thing, if you come out a little bit of everything, there are several possibilities. You took the test wrong. You didn't understand the words. So in this book, there are definitions. You are peaceful, phlegmatic, and have trouble making decisions. You are perfect and about to ascend, or you were so controlled, directed, and oppressed as a child that you can't get a true grasp on who you really are. Whatever way you come out in the personality profile, remember, it is not the label, but the understanding of your own personality strengths and weaknesses that is important. So, last that I want to share on this particular section. And so this is an awesome slide that comes from another book that's called Full Spectrum. This is a second version, Full Spectrum Freedom, that was written by Jacob Adamo, and it's still promoted by his wife, Sarah Adamo. This chart comes from their book. It puts together some of these frameworks, a whole bunch of these frameworks, and it gives some additional information when it comes to communication styles. So we see our red here, which is our D, our dominant, our choleric, our powerful choleric. They are the driver. They control. And when we're communicating with them, they're fast-paced, extrovert, and optimistic, and we have to answer the question, what? So in communication style with a red choleric, we need to answer the question as soon as possible, what? What is this about? Then we move to our blue, which is our popular sanguine, our influencer. They are very expressive. And you can see the other frameworks, right? The red had a lion there too. I think this is a beaver, maybe with the blue. Or no, squirrel. This is squirrel. And they are right-brained. And they are, again, both fast-paced, extrovert, optimistic. But the question that you're going to answer to them is why? Why should I do this? You know, you got to prove the fun, the everything. You got to answer the question why when you are communicating with them. We then have our yellow. Again, the steady, the peaceful, phlegmatic. They're amiable. Their animal is the dog. They emote. And they are slow-paced, introvert, and pessimistic. And then, again, we have those combinations that we've shown already. When it comes to our blue yellows, they're people-oriented. When it comes to our red, and then we go to the green, they're goal and task-oriented. The blue and yellows are purpose-oriented as well. And then lastly, over here in our left corner to the bottom, we have our compliant C, green. Oh, and for the yellows, we answer the question who. Who are we going to help? Who's going to be there? We answer the question who. The greens, they are analytical. Our perfect melancholy, our compliant, our C. They are left-brained. They control things, but it's information. They're slow-paced, introvert, and pessimistic. So again, our blue yellows emote. They're right-brained. Our red greens, they're left-brained. They control. And we can see all the similarities between those when we study this chart. Now, usually when people do these types, we talk about famous individuals based on their personality type. So you could just Google this. And of course, this is going to be their dominant type. Again, if we have those natural blends, they tend to be like 50-50. If we have those complementary blends, one tends to be kind of dominant, and then you tend to have another one, like it's a 50% with the dominant, and then you kind of have a 30 and a 20% after that with the rest of them. So individuals who are dominant in the red personality are David Letterman, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, Tiger Woods. Again, they're going to still have a secondary personality. Famous greens are Tom Brokaw, Bill Gates, Diane Sawyer, Alan Greenspan. Famous blues, Jay Leno, Bill Clinton, Oprah Winfrey, Steve Martin. Famous yellows, Barbara Bush, Jimmy Carter, and Michael J. Fox. So these are some resources to continue your study. I am a network marketing professional as well as an automotive professional. And so the book, The 4 Color Personalities for Multi-Level Marketers by Big Al Schreider, The Secret Language for Network Marketing, is a very fun approach and it uses the colors. You can look up the DISC personality on the website that you see there. And then again, my favorite one really is Personality Plus by Florence Littauer. That is what I was reading from when it came to those opposites or dysfunctional blends. That is the one that I love the most. And so if you want to, most people have heard about this framework. And if you've heard about it, I would definitely recommend that you purchase Personality Plus to continue your learning of these personality types. And then, if you don't follow me yet, follow me for more resources on YouTube. I have over 500 videos. This will be going under my business videos. So I have motivational videos, I have business videos. I do Facebook classes right now. This is March 2020, and we are in our stay-at-home mode for anyone watching this in the future. So I'm doing a lot of Zoom education and Zoom classes as well. You can find all of my classes on the Facebook page, vidaactiva.life. When we're back out the house, you'll find my in-person Michigan classes there as well. To connect with me on a business level, you can find me on LinkedIn under my name. I copied the wrong link. I can see. I will have to change that because it should be my name there. And then Instagram, you can find me at SweetCanela5. So thank you so much for watching this. I hope that it blesses you. And if you need at any point in time, feel free to reach out to me and ask any questions. Have an amazing evening, guys. Bye.